Good morning and welcome to Rising. Just wanted to address, obviously there's a different setting today, dealing with some technical issues all morning, but we hope to get everything fixed ASAP. Until then, of course, we want to get straight to the news. 4th of July celebrations in Chicago were very unfortunately marred by a mass shooting yesterday when a 22-year-old, allegedly Robert Bobby Crimo III, allegedly shot and killed 6 and injured many more with a high-powered rifle during a parade in the Highland Park neighborhood. He's being called a person of interest so far in this massacre. He is in custody. Let's watch.
What I can tell you at this moment was approximately 15 minutes ago, the subject that we were looking for, the person of interest, Robert Crimo III, was spotted by a North Chicago unit at Buckley and 41, his vehicle, the vehicle that we were looking for. He attempted to initiate a traffic stop on that subject. That subject did flee. A brief pursuit went on. Ultimately, they were able to get the subject stopped at Wesley and 41 in Lake Forest. The subject was taken into custody without incident. So at this point, I, again, want to reiterate, things are moving very quickly, as they do, unfortunately. And we just want to keep you updated with the most relevant information. The person of interest is now being taken to the Highland Park Police Department, where we're going to begin the next phase of the investigation and speak with this person to make sure or see if, in fact, he is connected to this incident. So that's really where we're at right now.
While we don't know much about the suspect or his motivations, we do know that on social media, Crimo depicted himself to be an amateur rapper and frequently posted disturbing videos on his YouTube channel filled with violent imagery and also depicting mass shooting fantasy. According to NBC News, Crimo rarely posted about politics, except for 2 posts expressing support for former President Donald Trump.
Someone who allegedly knew Crimo tweeted, quote, "The shooter had no political ideology other than to co-opt random aesthetics in furtherance of his interest in alternate reality games and was a stoner who had lost touch with reality." I'm actually getting kind of echoes, and it is so early, and it is just, irresponsible to do any kind of crazy speculation. We're going to find out more about the guy, but this feels so far similar to the Arizona shooter, Jared Lee Loughner, in that, disturbing kind of, obviously deranged individual with lots of disturbing social media posts, sort of disturbing behavior, but not, and sort of not identifiably political so much. They say he was at a Trump event, like dressed as Waldo.
Right. Pictures of him posed with a MAGA cape. Yeah,
a MAGA cape, but it's not clear yet if it's really more than that. I mean, not that it matters. We're in that, time period where so many people are trying to co-opt whoever it is, the shooter, for a political narrative, like, if we find out, he's a Trump supporter, then liberals breathe a sigh of relief, and because now it's Trump people's fault. Or if we find out it was a Muslim or a gang member or something, then it's the opposite.
Except we don't often find that out. In the case of these mass shootings, a lot of these mass shootings are being conducted by young white men that identify politically on the right. So it's not like people are just jumping out and throwing that out of nowhere. It's because we have a continuous problem with these mass shootings, and they very often fit the profile of the young man we're looking at now.
I think they, statistically, though, are not outside most people in the country are white, so most mass shooters are white, but I think it breaks down pretty close to the actual.
That's an interesting argument.
I think it's. It's true that if you're looking for disproportionate kind of characteristics, right? They're all male and they're disproportionately young.
And they're disproportionately white.
Well,
these mass
they're
shootings?
not disproportionately white.
These mass shootings, Robby.
They're not disproportionately white.
The mass shootings.
It depends how you're defining mass shooting. I think
I'm talking about the major mass shootings in this country that we know about, right? Aurora, we just had one the other day. They are very often young white men like this, are they not? That didn't come out of thin air.
Well, right, but I'm saying it wouldn't be disproportionate, even if 70% of them were, right? Because aren't white people that much of the country? So it's not, and also it's only if you're talking about the deranged. Sure, there have been a number of sort of deranged gunman type people doing these horrific But the crime occurring everywhere in our cities, right, where sometimes multiple people are shot, are not disproportionately
having a conversation
white. They're
about,
disproportionately not white.
There's a different conversation to be had about gun violence and just what are regular shootings, and when it comes to crime.
I mean, it's all guns. It's all people getting shot.
It's not the same as mass shootings. People conducting what are seamless. There is a big difference between people deciding they're going to go commit mass shootings at random large areas with people they don't know because they're being influenced by whatever particular ideology they seem to have, whether it be Buffalo. These things are happening repeatedly. We can't just conflate them in order to, move away, shift the goalpost from having a real analysis as to why is this happening? Why do we keep seeing so many young white men decide to go get these weapons and go out and conduct mass shootings? It's relevant to have that conversation. We can't just move along and let's have a conversation about gun violence in general in all the communities. No.
I don't know why, but why do we only want to explore that when that accounts for like a small sliver of overall violence, overall gun violence?
Robby, first of all, it's not that we only want to account for that. All we ever do is talk about crime and guns and violence. That's a general thing. So let's not act like we don't talk about it. Second of all, we've talked about 3-4 mass shootings in the last however many weeks. Mm-hmm. That's why. It's not that it's counting for a small amount of these things happening. It's that mass shootings have become so routine that both of us looked at each other like, what new can we say? That's why we're talking about it.
Well, there's not a lot to say yet because we don't know all the details. We don't know for sure. I'm seeing conflicting reporting, for instance, on whether he was known to law enforcement already. I saw on TV this morning, pretty sure they were saying on CNN that he was not known to law enforcement, but now I'm seeing local news reporting saying that he was in fact known to law enforcement, which always, and it is something I think we agree on, known to law enforcement, how interesting.
Right.
They dropped the ball yet again. And we got it because at first it always, the narrative usually gets worse and worse for the police.
Yeah,
right?
so if it starts here,
police did great, good job everyone, and then by the end it's Uvalde, right?
Right, exactly.
So I'm
going to wait.
I want to find out what exactly they did here.
Yeah, I want to wait to find out more before I launch into my policing failure tirade, but it's coming if I find out more, Robby.
We hope it's not, but we have been even giving the benefit of the doubt to any extent whatsoever was so catastrophically wrong in Uvalde, for instance.
And we also, I just think it's worth mentioning also that we've been having this repeated national conversation about mass shootings, and how this has become very normal in America as opposed to other major countries. And I think it is not lost upon me that literally on 4th of July, Independence Day, this is what we get, right? Instead of having a conversation about celebrating the country's independence, we're talking about another mass shooting.
And it was not the only shooting over the weekend, obviously. In Philadelphia, another 4th of July celebration was spoiled by gunshots. This video shows attendees fleeing the scene. Thankfully, no fatalities this time recorded from that shooting. However, 2 officers were in fact injured and no suspect has been arrested. The circumstances of that shooting still under investigation. There is obviously a gun violence problem in this country. It's I think more subtle than is often discussed in the mainstream media, which makes it sound like it's all right. Some crazy person gets a gun and does something. A lot of crime, a lot of just one-off homicides, a lot of suicides, a lot of depression and mental illness.
Yes, America has a lot of issues. America has a lot of issues that exist in other places. But America specifically has a mass shooting problem that other countries are not dealing with. Not only have we been talking about shootings like this repeatedly, this isn't even the first one in Philly. This is the second one we've talked about like this in Philly, not even just the other places. We gotta talk about this. This is a major problem. It's not just the media deciding to sensationalize it or people deciding to fixate on this issue. It's because it's become so dangerous. It's become so regular. You can't go to a parade. You can't go to school.
No, that's not true.
99.999%
of the time, but they're not. I mean, statistically, they're not really real concerns. The schools are extremely, unbelievably, overwhelmingly safe.
If that's the case,
so
if schools are overwhelmingly, unbelievably safe,
these things don't represent the normal.
The thing is, we don't feel if schools are overwhelmingly, unbelievably safe, and these were the truth, then tell me why all these schools all around the country have decided to put police all in the schools, right? Let's not talk about the school-to-prison pipeline and all the ways in which brown and black children are being criminalized in schools already. So that's not what we believe.
Safety theater.
We can't have this narrative.
Just
we
like
can't
everything
switch it in order to deflect from these issues. And the fact that this is a repeated thing, we cannot minimize what are these issues, especially when we're recognizing them in so many other ways. It's always, oh, danger, danger, crime, this, and the next thing. Yeah, police, oh, guns, all this. But the minute we want to talk about these mass shootings, because we know this is going to go into a conversation about regulating these guns and all these different things, and maybe the ideologies that are being perpetuated to allow for these same young boys, these young white boys to go out and go do these things, we don't want to have that conversation.
Well, right. I agree in general that there's a lot of fear-mongering done in service of stripping us of our rights, or more enforcement, more policing on many categories of human behavior. Liberals are very good at pointing out a lot of those. Conservatives point out, some of everyone points it out for the other side's issues. I don't like any of it. I think it's a universal effort to strip law-abiding people of their rights, people who mostly do nothing wrong and are blamed and lose their rights and lose their freedoms whenever even it's one in a trillion time happening, some crazy person does something and then everyone else gets punished, which is what we see with policing in general, police in schools. The TSA, we're going to talk about problems with air travel, is just beyond screwed up right now.
I think we have to have this conversation in general also when it comes to stripping rights, and we have the conversation about guns and Second Amendment. There's a lot of championing of guns and our constitutional rights and all this and the next thing when we're talking about white people. When we're talking about white people and their guns, oh, it's our rights, we can't regulate it. Any suggestion of any kind of regulation is somehow tantamount to trying to destroy people's constitutional rights. And on the flip side, we're going to talk about Jayland Walker later, who has a gun and fled the police, or is said to have had a gun in his car, was unarmed at the time police shot him 60 times and killed him. And then here's the narrative and the rhetoric from people on the right who are just championing guns, our Second Amendment right, yada, yada, yada. Oh, he was armed, the police had to shoot, which is always the conversation we hear whenever black people are killed by police. But on the flip side, we have a mass shooter with a gun that shoots at least 30 people, also fled the police, taken in without incident. So these hypocrisies.
They found the gun. He left the gun behind, though. So
just like Jayland Walker's gun was in his car when police chased him and shot at him 100 times and shot him 60 times and killed him. So
I look forward to hearing more about that, continuing the discussion, obviously, with our radars, which will be up next.